10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. Good luck, studio.
493. It's the Shy Life podcast.
493.
You won't find a cast of characters like this everywhere.
Hello, Paul.
I'll go anywhere for a potato.
Delicious.
This particular episode of The Shy Life is a little more abstract than usual. Okay, it looks like the hairy guy is ready to record. 3, 2, 1.
Go Shy Yeti.
Oh, I hope he hasn't found out my secret. Do you think he has?
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Shy Life podcast with me, Paul the Shy Yeti. How are you doing? I'm right. Martin's here.
Hello.
Martin Holmes, that is. Hi, Martin.
That's the other one.
Yeah. Yes, we're here to talk about some music. In fact, this is a very exciting year for me because although...
He's alive! Chandler's alive!
I am alive, but not for much of it, to be fair. But
Chandler's nearly alive!
I would have been a twinkle from about February or something, but I'm not sure. But yes, 1973.
About 8% of the year. 8%!
Well, that was the twinkle bit. I was only here from November.
You were gestating for most of it, though.
Yeah, I was thinking. I had my hand on my... doing my Bruce Forsyth impression.
The proverbial bun in the oven.
Yeah.
You're allowed to say that, Dee. I don't know. Anyway.
We have done. Well, listeners may remember we did do a mini episode about 1968 and 1973 with Nick a while back, and it was quite a while back because those were our birth years. But we never actually properly did 73, and now we've properly done 68. We definitely have to do 73 properly. So
it's only fair. Unfortunately, you couldn't get Nick today, so he's stuck with me.
No. We left Nick in 1975, so
did we really? Oh,
yes, we got a couple of years.
We're catching with him and bring him back.
that I think we're going to hop back to the early 50s, but if I can take you with me there. But anyway, that's in the future. So let's run the theme music, and when we come back,
the future's in the past. The past, oh God, oh no, you're messing with my head now.
We'll get talking about 73, but we'll run the theme music first, and we'll be back in a moment.
It's time for my old buddy, old pal from across the channel, across the pond, Paul Chandler, the Shy Yeti.
He's not that shy. Oh, it's the Shy Life podcast. Yeah.
All I wanted was a pie.
And then I hatched out of an egg. Okay, bring the mic over. He's ready to record.
It's the quiet ones you've got to watch, you know.
Is it metaphorical? Is it deep? Is it deep?
Good boy. He's not all that shy is right.
Blimey, Governor, it's the Shy Life podcast.
If you thought that was bad, just listen to this.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait for it to begin.
It's the Shy Life podcast.
He's positively glowing.
It's all gooey and meaty and yum, 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 yum.
And we're back. So, do you have any particular memories of 1973?
You know, I was thinking about this before we started recording today, and the only vivid thing I remember, and I don't even think it's something I particularly remember because of it being 1973, other than the fact I do remember Tit Royal Wedding, Tit Anne and Mark.
Oh, no.
Now I believe that actually in November. Was that about the time you were arriving
not
from
sure.
Planet Chandler?
Yeah, it's not in my list of
Maybe it was. And the only thing I remember is I think it was because it's that thing. Things mess up in your head. I remember I had to go into next door's house, and next door's house only had a 2-channel television that was black and white. And for some reason, I ended up seeing part of it in there, possibly because my mum was out. But I can't imagine my mum wasn't doing anything other than watching a royal wedding, because she did that sort of thing. So I literally don't know. I imagine it was a holiday. I imagine we had the day off for it. But for some reason, I had to go into next door's house for a while And that was very strange. More because I was more bewildered by the fact that, one, why can't I change the channel? And why can't I change the channel away from this? But there we go. That's the thing. I would have been 9. I mean, and I think I've said to you before, I don't have very strong memories of anything much before the age of 12, but the moments pop in. But one of those things that specifically does pop in is, strangely enough, the that royal wedding. Wait, I've not watched a royal wedding since. It put me off for life, obviously. I think maybe that was the thing. You're 9 years old and people are saying, watch these lovely people being on. And you think, get away, parasites, bah.
I'm trying to find when it happened. They got engaged in May 73.
Mark Phillips, I believe, was his name. Captain.
Engaged. Here we go. Yes, you were right. They married. They married just after I was born by about 4 days.
There you go. They were waiting. They were waiting so they could invite you.
On the 14th of November 1973, the couple married at Westminster Abbey.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, I missed your birthday. Sorry, Paul. Happy birthday. Oh no, it's next month. But it will have been about 3 months.
Probably by the time this gets edited, I will.
Messing with my mind.
Dear.
I thought you were not. For some reason, I thought you were October. I got October in my head. I don't know why.
Yeah, no, that's the cat.
I thought you shared a birthday. That was but no, you share a birthday with Ick, don't you?
That's right. Yes, that's right. Well remembered.
That was it. I knew you shared a birthday with someone in your household.
Yeah.
So when I saw it was Dealey's birthday the other day, I thought, it must also be Paul's birthday. But no, I was wrong.
I'll tell you some actual facts that we know happened, according to this. On the 9th of January, Mick Jagger's request for a Japanese visa is rejected on account of a 1969 drug conviction. So they couldn't go to Japan for their tour.
Has he ever been? I mean, he must have been to Japan in the last 50 years, though.
It must have been since then, yeah. On the 14th of February, David Bowie collapses from exhaustion after a performance at New York's Madison Square Garden. Don't think I've ever heard about that. And on the 1st of March, Pink Floyd releases The Dark Side of the Moon.
Well, we talked about that in the last one, didn't we? And that they'd played it, and they were probably still playing it, but it was another several months before it actually came out. And wasn't then it was in the album charts for 5 years or something?
Bizarre.
Do you have a copy of Dark Side of the Moon, Paul? Floyd fan?
I'm not a massive one, but I did date somebody who was, so I kind of got interested for a while around that time. The only Pink Floyd I had before that was Relics, which is a sort of mixture of their early stuff.
My sister had it on vinyl.
Yeah.
But I did acquire it on CD, but I think my sister had it on one. Interestingly enough, I had to adapt their album cover design for a tribute band a couple of years ago called Iron Bell. In case anybody's listening, they won't. Mind you, I don't know how many of your listeners are in the north of England, but I had to do a version. So I changed the prism into a bell shape, and that was. I was very glad they picked that album as the one they wanted, not the one where the guy sort of set fire to himself, because that would have been very difficult for me to do a version.
At least one of the albums is just like a blur, isn't it? Of like one of the very early ones is just like it's like somebody's been mucking around with a paint jar. But
there are some who believe that it's only the Syd Barrett version of Floyd that's worth spending any time with. But I don't know. I have a collection of that, but I actually find it less. I enjoy listening to it less. Let's put it that way.
We have more drugs problems on the 8th of March. Paul McCartney, well, not us personally, but Paul McCartney is fined $250 after pleading guilty to charges of growing marijuana outside his Scottish farm.
Like nobody's going to Japan this year, are they?
And on the 14th...
McIntyre,
I don't know, because I'm pretty sure that the Beatles would have been stoned at some point when recording. They managed not to sound stoned.
That means they'd be the Rolling Beatles and the Beatley Stones.
They were all rolling back then. 14th
they were all at it. They were all at it, Mr. Hancock, sir. They were all at it.
14th of March, the singers Stephen Stills and Veronique Sanson are married near Guildford. I only mention that because it's near where I live. So, And on the 7th of April, Cliff Richard takes part in the 18th Eurovision Song Contest, where he finished.
Is he done for drugs as well? No?
Not what we know of. He finished third that year with "Power to All Our Friends."
That one.
It's quite a catchy.
Yeah, he doesn't do that at Wimbledon, does he?
It's above average for a Eurovision entry.
It's one of those slightly timeless jobs, really, but it's also you kind of feel it probably got nicked for a load of power company adverts.
Somebody who didn't get done for drugs that year is
Mary Hopkins.
No, Led Zeppelin. Surprisingly, they embarked on a tour. They didn't get caught. Embarked on a tour of the United States, during which they set 90%. During which they set the record for the highest attendance for a concert: 56,800 at the Tampa Stadium in Tampa, Florida. The record was previously set by the Beatles, and they recorded the film "The Song Remains the Same" during that tour.
A lot of my friends were big fans of "The Song Remains the Same" when I was in those years when I knew nothing about music, much like the years I'm in now. And I know that it was one of those things that they would watch on video, or it'd been or they'd recorded it off the video, so it was years later. But or it was even just on late night television. Oh yeah, watch "This Song Remains the Same," man. And you think, oh, did you really? I have a clue. It took me a long time to get into Zeppelin. Long time.
We also have two more David Bowie facts. On the 12th of May,
he stood up again.
He was the first rock artist to perform at Earl's Court.
Oh, okay.
And then on the 3rd of July, he retired.
Was it some trade show or something?
Not sure. On the 3rd of July, he retired Ziggy Stardust.
He just retired. I thought I'm sure he was around after then. I'm sure he was. The 57th comeback tour.
It's 25th of May, Mike Oldfield's Tubular Bells was released.
The Exorcist.
And 30th of June, Ian Gillan quits Deep Purple.
I like Gillan. Gillan were a fun band. Well, they did Purple for a fun band, but I have a Gillan CD somewhere.
On the 4th of July, Slade drummer Don Powell is critically injured in a car crash.
Oh, crikey.
His 20-year-old girlfriend is killed. I was trying to think what critically means. I thought critically meant that he was dead.
No, that'd be fatally.
Sure.
Critically just meant he probably had to go into the ICU for a while. I see you for quite a long time. It's probably a very bad injury. That's the thing.
On the 13th of July, Cream released their debut album.
In 73, that's surprising. It's a good album, that first Queen album. Some people think the sound quality is not great, but I think the Keep Yourself Alive and all that stuff is actually really, it's actually, in and of itself, if they'd only ever made that album and had been sort of almost forgotten, it's actually still a pretty good sort of 40 minutes or whatever it is.
I've got the odd Queen album, but I've not ever really got into the albums in the way I have with, say, Bowie. But on it's a bit early in the year, but I think it's happened before. I think all the exciting things happen in the first 6 or 7 months. Then everyone else is getting ready for Christmas.
Oh, right, yeah, that's it. Now you just got to go shopping for 6 months. Yeah.
On the 15th of July, Ray Davies of the Kinks made an emotional outburst during a performance at White City Stadium, announcing he's quitting the group, but he later withdraws the statement. 1973 would have been a bit of a sort of, I don't know if that's certainly after
it's a year of flux, isn't it? It's definitely a year of change. The old in with the new, and we're in transitions, and people are moving around from band to band.
They'd stopped having, they didn't have a full lineup anymore, or an original lineup, and they weren't having hits in the UK anymore. I think it's just a little bit before they started to take off in America, because America got all excited about the later Kinks stuff. I don't know how much they know about the 60s. The stuff we think of as the best of the Kinks.
He became quite the sort of celebrity musician, didn't he, in America? I mean, I suppose there was a living to be made over there, wasn't he involved with Chrissie Hynde later on? So he was a bit of sort of godfather of punk in many ways.
Yeah, I can't remember the actual dates, but yeah. I read an autobiography by her, but I don't think she goes that far in. It was more about the early days before. I'm hoping she'll do another one because wasn't that much about the Pretenders itself.
No.
Right, well, let's get on to some of these number ones. I'm just
okay. In with the bullet. Start of the year, 1973.
Yes, I just want to double check that the lists I've got are that.
Looking at the right year. It's always useful.
Well, I've got two different sources, and I don't want to.
You notice they suddenly dubbed in the word four. We've looked at the wrong list, and suddenly we've skipped a year, and so we'll have to do some wild tracking where I go 1974, 1975, 1976, 1977, 1977, 1978, 1972.
Well, the first.
I've confused you now.
You always confuse me. It's fine. That's what I'm here for. Don't forget, when I used to do Sutton Park, I never quite knew who what the other actor was going to say.
Who was turning up this week?
Well, I didn't, and also I didn't know if they were going to say something that really, really changed the plotline. There was definitely an episode of Sutton Park where one of my co-stars had a fake to fit and collapsed and refused to. So we just had to kind of he's dead then. Are you sure you're not going to wake up? He wasn't really dead, and he did come back in the series later. But it wasn't planned.
You could always come back. That's the thing. Mind you, in your sort of show, you could probably come back as your robot twin brother anyway.
Oh, we did that in Sutton Park, definitely. And we grew a new one from a hand. Actually, we did that on Sutton Park long before they did it on Doctor
Who. You didn't know that Russell T Davies was an avid fan, did you?
He probably has access to the archives, Sutton Park archives, and I never realised. Okay, so our first number one. That's
it. Perhaps you should offer to go back as showrunner on new Sutton Park.
Yeah, I will definitely. No one else. I'm not letting anyone else do it. So our first number one. 1973 in the UK is the same as the last one of 72.
Oh, and that's a memory test now. You're going to check, and I haven't listened to it back yet. Go on, tell me.
Long-haired lover from Liverpool.
Oh, okay. I wish you hadn't told me now.
I can't remember. That was number one for another 3 weeks.
You know, the thing that gets me about Jimmy Osmond, little Jimmy Osmond, there's two things. Really. One is that I can't. You know that thing where some people, for some reason, seem to find children appealing and endearing, and it seems to be assumed in adverts that if they put an advert with a child in it, you're going to go, oh, and they just make me kind of go, go away. Yeah. The other thing about Jimmy Osmond is you kind of wonder, and I also get this a little bit with the Bangles, is if either of them really knew where Liverpool was and how to say it, because. So what's a Liverpool? Don't worry about it. It's in the lyric.
Well, of course, that was a cover version as well. So they wouldn't have even have thought. It was not like they wrote that song, so they wouldn't even have. They would have been performing it as a cover. So
your long-haired lover from Hartlepool.
Yeah. Yeah, I just looked. That was number one for 5 weeks in all. So 2 weeks in 72 and 3 in 73.
What a start to the year! No, there was that Blue Monday that comes about 3 weeks into January. That's because basically they've had 5 weeks of little Jimmy Osmond at number one.
Yeah. Well, our next number one after that for 5 weeks again, up until late February, is Blockbuster by Sweet.
Now that is a tune. I mean, it's funny. I sometimes think that if there are certain songs that actually define an era, and in many ways, apart from the fact that his brother was Taggart, which still throws me. I know I've mentioned that before,
I did research that. I did research that. It was actually his adopted brother. He was the guy from Sweet was adopted by Taggart.
It's funny because actually I always thought there's something about the eyes you can tell we're related.
Well, I think they had a discussion as to whether. I think I read on this that as brothers they discussed that they did look similar. So I don't know if that inferred that they thought that his father was his father. You know, his.
Oh, I see what you mean. Might have adopted from.
But it was never spoken about. I don't know. I don't know if that was what the thing I read was inferring. But
I don't know what to do.
It's a good one because it sort of it builds up, doesn't it? And then it goes back and starts again, and then it explodes into the chorus.
No, they're pretty good band, The Sweet, to be honest. To be fair, I mean, I know that the problem is now, to a certain extent, they just look slightly ridiculous because of the glam fashions, but actually musically, just on the ears, they were some, as the youngsters would have, some banging tunes.
I tell you what sweet song I don't think I knew it as well, but I sort of, I don't know if it was when I was doing the episode from 1978, but one of their last hits, Love Is Oxygen, that's a really good sweet song.
I do like Ballroom Blitz, Man at the Back Said Everyone Attack. Yeah. But that's interesting because that sort of, in my mind, sort of slightly gels with Suzi Quatro as well, and there's a whole sort of that sound for some reason that's quite very raw actually for glam, or for what you might call glam rock. Very raw sound. Again, you can sort of see the proto punk coming in there. That raw guitar sound and sort of heavy sort of drum beat. Yeah.
Well, we have another class number one that follows the Sweet for 4 weeks. We have "Come On Feel the Noise" by Slade.
Again, the same thing. There's obviously a 73 sound, isn't there? Because that, again, raw. Yeah. Playing fast and loose with spelling.
Yes. Yeah. For those of you who don't know, there's a Z in noise, and
it's probably the American spelling, as in the OED, the Oxford English, as opposed to what's the American dictionary called?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Chambers? Anyway, never mind.
Chamberlain. Well, the number one after that is less exciting, but it only lasted for 1 week. Okay. And I'm not sure if this is a song that I know or whether it's a different song. It's "The 12th of Never" by Donny Osmond.
The 12th of Never. That's got to be a cover, hasn't it? I'm sure that's been done by others.
It was done by Johnny Mathis in the 50s.
Yeah, I felt Frank Ifield itching at my brain then, but I'm obviously wrong.
So Cliff did it in 1964.
So one a decade, basically.
Cliff's version got to number 8, and Johnny Mathis's wasn't released in the UK. So, Donny Osmond is the...
What was it about the Osmonds? I mean, the Osmonds collectively and the Osmonds individually, they just seem to dominate music in 1973. I remember the footage of them at the concert at Bellevue where they smashed all the windows, and all that kind of thing. And they would, and I'm looking, and you look at them now and you think, what was the appeal? What was, again, I do feel a thick streak of cynicism is creeping into my responses this year, but possibly that will be caused by the Osmonds, because there's just a strange, sickly, sweet, saccharine something going on there. And I can't really get my head around what the appeal was, because they were ghastly, really, weren't they?
Yeah. What I don't understand, when you see like boy bands singing really soppy songs, they must literally be doing it for their audience. They can't really enjoy those songs that much because they're just so sappy. And I mean, they may sing them and get a good following, and it may lead to some romantic encounters, but you still have to sing those awful songs.
There are even to this day. I mean, as we've talked about in the past, I mean, I do like the Monkees, but there are a couple of Monkees tracks that I just cannot bear. They are so saccharine. I have to and there were those ones they made Davy Jones do, presumably to appeal to the teen market.
Well,
and I just have that. Yeah, what's the other one? It's not Shades of Grey, because Shades of Grey is actually quite nice, but there's the kind of girl I could. Oh God, it's awful.
Well, I mean, it's like the Beatles and stuff having screaming fans, but their songs aren't the sort of songs that you can't listen to
separately
because whereas no one's going to.
The ones that are sort of almost designed to get teenage girls swooning or whatever. They're just, or teenage boys for all I know. I mean, but it's just they are so saccharine. You can almost feel your teeth melting as you listen to these things. So yeah, and it's a very targeted and very cynical thing that they do to turn somebody into a teen idol. And the other thing about the Osmonds is the teeth. The teeth. I mean, how did they get teeth that gleamy? I mean, is it something in the water at Salt Lake City? I don't know.
No, well, the next person, I never thought of him as being a sex symbol, but
Frank Boff.
Gilbert O'Sullivan is our next number one.
Gilbert O'Sullivan. Yes, he was with his piano.
But there's a picture of him reclining with his shirt open in a sort of Tom Jones style, which I never thought of Gilbert O'Sullivan as trying to appeal for that audience.
They all had managers, didn't they? They all had managers, you know.
The song is Get Down.
I mean, I suppose you've also got to remember that this sort of era that there were the teen magazines where there was like, you know, Looking, but I think there were, you know, again, I say girl, but teenagers magazines. And they all have pin-ups, and people like pin-ups, and you know, if you want to become a pin-up, you've got to do the pin-up picture, haven't you?
It's just that, well, I suppose he was only in his mid-20s. It's just that, again, the music's so sappy, but
it's managers though, isn't it? And record companies, and they say, oh, you've got to do this, you know, just to appeal.
The thing I remember about Get Down was that on Top of the Pops,
we're a bad dog baby.
It was Pants
People
with a load of dogs on stage, sort of with Pants People scolding the dogs.
There were probably in those baby doll 90s as well that were popular at the time.
They were. And the only thing I remember is that there's, I don't know, say 6 Pants People, however many there are. There's one dog for each Pants person, except for one of the dogs quite quickly completely loses interest and walks off the stage, and I'm like, you know, all fairness to you, doggy.
We did this at rehearsal. I'm not doing it again.
Yeah. I just really feel for that dog. I'm like,
I thought you were going to tell me they were doing it with stuffed toys, you know, with the, you know, plush dogs or something.
At least it wasn't like the elephant on Blue Peter that started to leave deposits around the studio.
I don't know, just cock its leg up on a camera.
But I just love the dog that walks off, because he's like, that's.
Were they all the same kind of dog, or were they various species?
I can't remember now. I feel that it was sort of.
They were 6 identical
retriever types. I might be wrong. They weren't. No, they were sort of. But I might be wrong. They may have been more variety. But
again, there was something. I seem to be. I've obviously woken up today in a cynical frame of mind, but you kind of felt that there was a kind of cynical. The casting of Pants People feels quite cynical. You know, they had to have the tall blonde and the thin brunette, and I presume there was a redhead in there. It was like had to appeal to everybody has their type kind of nonsense. You know,
US listeners, we should probably explain. Pants People were the dancers on Top of the Pops in the early to late 70s.
Yes, until they got replaced by the bizarrely named Legs and Company.
Yeah, because Hot Gossip, that was Kenny Everett, wasn't it? But
unreconstructed times, definitely.
Our next number one for 4 weeks.
Ruby Flipper. Sorry,
save another one. Zoo as well. I think that was probably. I think that was an early 80s one. Yeah. And I think the later. Before they got rid of dancers on Top of the Pops, there was a sort of boy and girl group. I think that might have been Zoo.
It sounds familiar. Yeah.
So yes, we have.
I've lost track there. I'm sorry.
Our next number one is Tie a Yellow Ribbon Round the Old Oak Tree.
My giddy aunt. My mother used to sing that, but yes, that was number one for about 8 weeks, wasn't it, or something?
No, only 4, but
only 4. It felt like 8.
But it might have been in the charts for
it was just on all the time, and it was the sound of that summer, really. Oddly enough, I felt it was a summer one. Was it? Summer?
Well, sort of late April, May, so early summer. Yeah.
But I imagine later on in that it was on all the those summertime TV shows for the family entertainments on Saturday nights. They'd turn up and rattle off a few bars, you know.
Yeah.
Yes.
After that, we're back to more glam. We've got Wizard, See My Baby Jive for 4 weeks.
Good song. I mean, you were telling me last time that Wizard.
Yeah.
Roy Wood left ELO, didn't he? So about the time they got their first hit, so Wizard went off. So I mean, there's a point to be proven here, and obviously it's been proven. You know, they've been quite successful. The only problem I have with Wizard is that really now they're only really remembered for that Christmas song.
Yeah, I mean, I like there are a few number ones here by glam artists that I can't actually, off the top of my head, I can't think what the song is. See My Baby Jive is probably the only other Wizard song I remember. I don't think it's a song that particularly love by Wizard, but
they actually had. It's interesting because there's a kind of wall of sound feel to the Wizard. They really feel very overproduced in a very, like that man whose name we can no longer mention, way.
We'll be mentioning him soon.
Anyway. But you know, it's that real big overproduced sort of sound that's going on in those. I mean, you compare that to something like Slade, and it really is chalk and cheese, isn't it?
Our next number one, just for 1 week, and I think probably it should have been longer, is Susie Quattro, Can the Can.
Can the Can. My God. Susie Q. We all loved Susie Q, you know.
Yeah, I don't know whether she was bigger in the UK than the US, really, considering that she's American.
She had a heck of a career over here. I mean, she was around for several years. But didn't she end up as Fonzie's girlfriend on Happy Days?
Yeah, that's why I'm thinking. So she wasn't, not like she's unknown in the US. I just don't know how big she was, because I think she was produced by an English.
Well, I think she's about 5 foot nothing, wasn't she?
I think she was produced by a UK producer. I might be wrong, but I feel like she was
big hits over here, but then went back to the States and got an acting career. I mean, it does happen. You know?
Yeah, she was produced by Mickey Most. She moved over in '71, and I think before that she was in bands. She was in a band called the Pleasure Seekers, but I don't know how big they were. And she also worked with Mike Chapman, who I think was involved with Blondie, and.
But I mean, she was the one of the people who really did make the crossover from being just a musician to being a television presenter or television star as well. Sort of very, very sort of good at seeing that potential and capitalised on it. And let's face it, I said people my age, you know, we had a lot of time for Susie Quattro.
She probably doesn't get the credit she's due, because she's before Blondie, she's before Hind, and before a lot of rock and roll women started.
Well, there's an awful lot of things now where, you know, there's so much misogyny in the world that people sort of try and take the credit away from the actual performer, and the fact that she was a woman. You know, they'll say, "Oh, but it was all Mickey Most," or, you know, and actually, no, I've got a lot of time for her as a musician, as a personality. I think, we forgive a lot for Susie Q.
Yeah. The next number one, again only for 1 week, is, I think it's the first big song by 10cc, Rubber Bullets.
Really? Okay. Later than I expect. I always had the feeling that 10cc one of those ones that bubbled under for years, but then.
Well, it looks like they started in '72. I'm not sure if they'd had I'll just have a see if they had any other hits before this. It's Rubber Bullets definitely isn't my favourite 10cc.
It's an odd topic, isn't it? As much as anything.
Sort of, almost sounds like a parody, like they're parodying.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, as a lyric, it's kind of dodgy. I mean, I was thinking only the other day about Elvis Costello's Oliver's Army, and how there's some really dubious lyrics in there. You know, there's some quite dubious lyrics in some of the police stuff, which I've also been listening to. But load up. I mean, this must have been about the time when all the troubles were on in Ireland. I mean, this is it almost feels like you're turning something that's really quite tragic into entertainment, which I'm never that comfortable with. But load up with Rubber Bullets. I mean, you think about it now. You think we'll put that lyric in for that now until we come up with something better.
Yeah, they had quite a run of top 10 hits over here, but in the States, it was only "I'm Not in Love" and "The Things We Do for Love," which were big hits for them.
I see that on sort of that sort of mid Plains land radio. You could see them being very popular. That kind of.
They had they'd had one other hit before this, and a near number one. They had Donna in 1972, which got to number 2. So that was So they had.
Yeah, so there were a known quantity. But again, it's quite a change of pace from Donna. Donna to Rubber Bullets, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
Unless it isn't.
I think it is.
Unless they spent most of their evenings sort of taking pot shots at Donna as she was cooking or something. I don't know. Doing the washing up. Hold on, dear.
Poor Donna.
Yeah, poor old Donna.
The next number one was for 3 weeks, and it slayed again.
Right.
But I couldn't hum this one. Squeeze Me, Please Me. Is that
right? Okay.
That one that you? It's one I'm going to have to be researching.
I've got to be honest. It's not leaping immediately to mind.
It's a non-album track. It's sort of like one of those between album singles.
It's probably Donna. I've realised that Donna wouldn't have been doing the cooking. Donna would have been in charge. That's probably why they were taking pot shots at her with the Rubber Bullets. I'm sorry, I just thought about it afterwards. I thought, no, Donna is get out of it. I'm not here to cook and clean for you, sunshine. She was a modern, forward-thinking woman.
She like Ma Baker.
Yeah, and that's why they were bloody well sitting there. There's the horrible misogynist going, boing, boing, boing. I don't know. Anyway, sorry. Yes, I got sidetracked again. Squeeze Me, Please Me. It sounds very much like a Slade hit, but it doesn't come to mind.
Squeeze is spelled SKWEEZE, and Please is double E and a Z and then an E at the end.
Have you looked it up yet?
They managed to spell. I'm surprised they don't spell me wrongly as well. It says due to Pal's car crash, no music video was filmed to promote the single, but I still don't think that a lot of videos were. You do find. I was surprised when you find videos in the 70s for bands, because not every band did a video for a song. They weren't that. ABBA tended to, because
you got Rude Talk, you got One Walk, All Your Jokes Are Blue, you've got Long Nails, You Tell Tall Tales. You tell tall tales. Some you think are true. I mean, it still does. I've got the lyrics in front of me now, and it's still. I
like those lyrics. That sounds like one of my poems, or my poems sound like one of.
And there's nowhere to go, you won't go. If there's nowhere to run, you go slow. If you move up to me, then I'll show you the way. Then you'll know how to squeeze me. Whoa, oh. I don't know. It's not coming. It's not immediately coming to mind. But hey, there we go. Never mind.
I shall put it in my list of. I shall have a listen to it after we finish recording.
Yeah, basically, you're gonna bring out a CD of poetry done to Slade acoustics. That's what you're gonna do.
The only time I've done that was I wrote my version of "I Will Survive,"
right?
And it was "I Will Eat Pies," and it was. I made sure the rhyming and the rhythm was identical to the original.
And you never got the Bond gig. Pie fall, apple crumble.
It was what I used. It's the one I used to read at the end of my shows.
We'll be finished the show with a selection of tunes. That's the Paul's poetry. That were rejected Bond songs.
Yeah. Now, our next song, we're in the middle of July now.
Is that all? Crikey. There we go.
Yeah.
I was thinking that Tie a Yellow Ribbon was so late in the year. Yeah, okay.
Our next one, for only for 1 week, and this one is a bit of a soppy one, but it's one I've always kind of liked. It's Welcome Home by Peters and Lee.
And close the door.
It's definitely a karaoke favourite.
So long. Peters and Lee, they were huge, weren't they?
I think I must have heard that one from.
You see, I feel that I'm still, like I say, I'm a 9-year-old, so I'm on this. And funnily enough, that year we would have had my mum would have organised my sister's 18th birthday party, which we had in the house. I've still got photographs of that. But that's the kind of thing. That's the kind of music my mum and dad liked. So that's what they would have played. Therefore, I would have been aware of Peters and Lee, and they would have been on the Saturday night programs and all that kind of thing. But you sort of think this, a year or two later, and I'd be rebelling against all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I was as much dipping into my parents' record collection as to find out what I liked.
And my mum bought David Soul LPs, I mean, and they bought things like Andy Williams, I mean, that's they were very, very middle of the road,
Yeah. You were saying.
Sorry,
you were saying in the 1972 episode that you wondered why your mum was buying David Soul records, but he wasn't exactly a Donny Osmond. He must have been a good 10 years older than Donny Osmond.
I think she just fancied him.
Yeah, well, at least he wasn't like he must have been quite. He was a bit older than.
My mum would have been in her mid-40s, but then it would have been midlife crisis, whatever, the hormones. No, stop it, bad man. No, I don't know. I just know that she, for some reason, maybe she was thinking she was a silver lady. I don't know.
The Peters and Lee only really had one other big hit. They had one called "Don't Stay Away Too Long" in '74,
but they didn't seem to be around for a while.
Yeah, they had their album, like their first 4 albums were all top 10, so they were sort of doing okay until '75, and then
wasn't there some controversy about them later on, or is that somebody else?
Sure. No, I'm thinking Renee and Renata because I know.
Well, I know there were these couples who were couples and known for being couples, and then suddenly weren't couples anymore. I know that happened quite a lot in the music biz. But no, I can't remember. I thought there was some sort of vaguely dark story that got sort of hung on the Peters and Lee thing.
I knew there was Renee and Renata. The person who's in the video isn't the woman who's singing or something.
Ah, okay. You get that in the Bond films, half the time the people speaking aren't saying the words.
Yeah. Now, our next number one is someone who is persona non grata these days. I'm the leader of the gang. I Am by Gary Glitter.
I've told you this before. I think I did a project at school on Gary Glitter. We had when I'd started secondary school, we had to do a project for a music class, and me and the two of my mates. We knew nothing about music, but I had this look-in holiday special. I think it was a holiday special or a musician special or something. And so basically the three of us divvied it up, and I think I lost and I got the Gary Glitter. So I did the project on Gary Glitter. They did the project. One did a project on Elvin Stardust and one did a project on David Essex.
Yeah.
And we had to, put together a thing about it. So I was actually quite familiar. And funnily enough, later on, I did actually go to see two of his Christmas concerts in the days when he was touring. He toured with Girls' School one Christmas. So I was actually, you hesitate to say it now, but I was actually a bit of a fan. And I didn't think his music was bad. I thought it was a lot of fun. But then it turns out he was a right old creep. And then you think, oh, that's a bit of a shame.
There was the Glitter Band as well. Were they literally his band to start with and they went solo? I'm not sure.
I think so. Or it's very. I mean, I don't know enough about the background of the Glitter Band. I mean, I think they were put together as a what's they call session band for his, and people suddenly thought, oh, actually, they're not bad on their own as well. So who knows? But they're it's all glam, isn't it? It's all deck. Yeah.
I'm afraid the rest of '73 is pretty poor, really.
Is it all in?
We've still no, not entirely, but we've still got another 6 number ones.
Yeah.
And our next one for 4 weeks, towards the end of August into September, is Young Love, a million to one. I think that's probably a double A side. That's Donny Osmond, but I'm not sure. That's not Puppy Love, is it? So. Because that's not even Donny Osmond. That's not even Donny Osmond anyway. So I don't think I know Young Love at all.
No. The funny thing is, I'm thinking as a title, I'm thinking of a 50s.
Yeah, I think
but
you're right.
I don't know whether that's the same song.
There's
but that's
one
where
by
it's taken.
There's one by Rick Carty. Yeah, it had been a hit before.
You see, that's the other peculiar thing, isn't it, about an act like the Osmonds, is how much of it was new stuff, but how much of it was covers. And it's quite an old model in that sense. By that stage, that people weren't performing their own songs; they were performing, stuff that was supplied by songwriters, or had been hits before. And that's kind of bizarre, because I think that a lot of people that, again, are the target audience of these various constructs, if you like, are completely unaware of previous versions. And I think there's always a fascination when somebody, like the Scissor Sisters do a song and you go, oh yeah, that was a
yeah, I didn't really know Comfortably Numb.
Yeah.
I didn't really know Comfortably Numb before Scissor Sisters did it, because I hadn't delved into that era of Pink Floyd.
But it happens time and again. And I imagine even, in the time of the Osmonds, people go, oh, it's that great Osmond song, fabulous, amazing songwriters. And go, yeah, well, it was actually written in the 50s for, Frank Ifield or whatever.
Now, although I said the next few songs are pretty awful, that I'm not sure if this next one is awful. I just don't really know it. It's another Wizard track called Angel Fingers.
Angel Fingers?
Yeah, and it was number one for 1 week, and I don't know anything about it at all.
That passed me by as well, unless it was Cake.
Yeah.
Obviously, it wouldn't have passed me by. I'd have been in there, mate.
It's actually, when you look closer, it's called Angel Fingers, a teen ballad by Wizard.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know it at all. So
there's another one to look up. We'll get Ick to do that one later. Angel fingers, tra la la, my fingers of an angel.
Well, he doesn't get the lyrics right anyway.
Neither do I, mate.
So it's fine. He'll be fine. He can just make up as he goes along. Then for 4 weeks. Now this is a good one. It's not necessarily top of the pop spotter really, but it's for 4 weeks. Eye Level by Simon Park Orchestra. What was that from? Oh, Van der Valk.
Van der Valk. Yeah. Van der Valk.
Yes, I think
it's a lager, not a tune.
It's only 2 minutes 20. God, you won't get much for your money.
We have that. I have the single of that. And the B-side was Distant Drums. From
it says Distant Hills here, but there we go.
Sorry, yes, you're right. Distant Drums was somebody else entirely. Distant Hill. You can re-edit this. And the B-side was Distant Hills, which is
right.
Yes, amazing. Yes. Which was Crown Court.
Right. Yeah.
The theme from Crown Court. At least it is on our copy.
Yeah.
You may have a misprint on it that says Distant Drums. No, Distant Drums was a Jim Reeves album my dad owned.
Yeah. Now our next number one for 3 weeks is the song. The third week was the day of my birthday.
So this is your birthday tune, it?
Yeah, I'm not happy about it.
This is what's designed your entire life. Your entire life, you popped into the world while this was everyone who was whistling this. Go on, what was it?
Daydreamer, the Puppy Song by David Cassidy.
Never mind.
I don't even remember what Daydreamer sounds like. It's probably
the Puppy Song.
Yeah.
Well, you like animals.
The Puppy Song is a Harry Nilsson song, which gives it a slight more sort of. It was a song that Nilsson originally wrote at Paul McCartney's request for Mary Hopkin.
Right.
So, whereas Daydreamer was. Well, it wasn't a cover, I don't think. It was written for him.
Right.
Although Cilla Black recorded a version in '74. I think I'd just feel happier listening to that than. I don't mind. I could cope if it was Cilla, but. Yeah.
Well, David Cassidy, like I say, he had his fans.
all those teen heartthrobs, they all look like members of the Tomorrow People. They all have that Tomorrow People hair.
That's just the flick and what's it hair, isn't it? Let's have a look. Oh, I know he'd never bite me. Oh no, I know he'd never bite me.
Is this the puppy song? or daydream.
If only I could have a puppy, I'd call myself so very lucky just to have some company to share a cup of tea with me. I'd take my puppy everywhere, la 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 da, I wouldn't care. But we would stay away from crowds with signs that said no dogs allowed. If only I could have a friend who'd stick with me until the end, to walk along beside the sea and share a bit of moon with me. Take my friend most everywhere, la 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 la, I wouldn't care. But we would stay away from the crowds with signs that said no friends allowed. Dreams are nothing more than wishes, and a wish is just a dream you wish came true.
I feel sorry for Mary Hopkin.
It might have won Eurovision one year, that, if they'd stuck with it. My lovely horse. That's what you came into the world to, Paul. Look at that.
Yes, he had some other hits. I've forgotten he had a number one the previous year with How Can I Be Sure, and also Could It Be Forever, number 2, and I Am a Clown, number 3. I mean, the next single he did after the puppy song was If I Didn't Care, got to number 9.
If I didn't care about my puppy, it would die.
His song career sort of started to dry up a bit after, I think the puppy song did some damage, but although he did have a number 6 hit in 1979 with The Last Kiss, which was quite a big gap, really. Anyway, let's go back. So our next
after the Cassidy, and you're now screaming in your crib at this horror.
I'm now screaming for 4 weeks. I Love You, Love Me, Love by Gary Glitter, which was pretty much the only Gary Glitter single that I ever used to kind of quite like, because it's a bit silly. But
it's funnily enough that plays on the that McCartney theory, but it talks about how, you know, how they wanted to move the love around in the song. So instead of me love you, love I, love me, love Lou, love they, love, you know, love me do. She loves you, I love him. You know, all this or whatever. And it's I suppose it plays on that a bit, but it's him again.
And then the last number one
of the year is this the Christmas number one.
Yeah, it's Slade, Merry Christmas, Everybody.
No, really? The first time and every year since.
Yeah, I don't know if you know that, listeners overseas, but Slade is still perfectly capable of having a top 10 hit with Merry Christmas, Everybody, like randomly, even now. I mean,
well, it's still. I mean, it turns up, you know, on the soundtrack. So when everybody has a Christmas present, Christmas episode of a TV show, it tends to be what's heard, doesn't it? It tends to be the quintessential British Christmas, what you hear in a supermarket background noise for pretty much 50 years now. Well, that's quite impressive.
Not Slade, but it's still an early 90s Christmas song. That All I Want for Christmas Is You by Mariah Carey. It had done the same thing in that most years it appeared in the top 40, and then in 2020 it was Christmas number 1, sort of like nearly 30 years after it was first released. Are you
a fan of Christmas songs generally?
Not at all.
What amazes me, I suspect, is that I mean last year's Christmas number 1, or the last number 1 of 72. Hung around in 73. I don't imagine Merry Christmas Everybody was still number 1 in January, was it?
I'll let you know later on. I'm not sure how many weeks
it just strikes me as it's the kind of thing that would peak at the week before Christmas but would plummet off a cliff in terms of sales.
What I did, well, I've got 2 things to say about that. My 2 favourite sort of pop songs that are Christmas related, I quite like Step Into Christmas by Elton John. I don't mind that one, and I like, and probably my favourite Christmas song is December Will Be Magic Again by Kate Bush, which wasn't a big hit for her at the time, and it also doesn't appear on that many Christmas compilations. I think that might be her choice. I don't think she rates it that much.
But how many of our collective listeners of your show, my show, and the other shows we appear on, if we started a campaign for people to buy a download of Merry Christmas Everybody or whichever in July, could we? How many would we need now to actually make a Christmas #1 happen in July?
Yeah, I'm not sure. There must be everybody doing a Christmas, recording their Christmas shows in July. Yes, it's a weird one. I've forgotten the other thing I was going to say now. Never mind. It'll come back to me.
What about Christmas music generally?
No, not really.
I see, because I always, it's funny, I'm a bit the same about Christmas episodes of TV shows. For some reason, I'm not the biggest fan of them as a form, because I always feel it's too forced somehow. I mean, I suppose I'm not the world's biggest fan of Christmas as an of itself as a concept, but it just strikes me sometimes that, because that, oh God, they have to fall into, there's got to be a tree, there's got to be the tinsel, there's got to be the star, there's got to be the this and that, and it almost feels like they're just writing by numbers sometimes just to appeal.
We don't decorate. Yeah, we don't decorate at Christmas at all. I have a Santa Claus babushka doll I bought in Prague about 15 years ago. That's my Christmas decoration.
Actually, I thought you'd have an "Are You Being Served" flashing Santa that you could put in the window.
In fact, my babushka Santa doll doesn't go away. I can see it now. It's sitting waiting all year. So I celebrate Christmas all year long in a way. But
you wish it could be Christmas every day.
So let's have a look at some of the other singles that came out.
This is my cynical pitch, Paul. We'll make sure you put this out in Christmas week. You see.
Yeah, could be. That's one thing I do quite enjoy, is doing Christmas episodes of the podcast, because that usually involves something dramatic. And I also enjoy, although I don't know if I'll do it this year, doing my live shows on Christmas Day. But that's only because
show this year.
Yeah, that's only really because it's better than. There's nothing else going on Christmas Day around this place, so other than a nice meal. So I quite enjoy doing that, because you don't know that you might be making somebody else's rather boring Christmas a little bit more exciting. So now this is the best-selling hits. So I'm not going to read them all, but most of them are the ones we know. The biggest selling hit of '73 was "Tie a Yellow Ribbon Round the Old Oak Tree." Then Eye Level, then Welcome Home, then Blockbuster, then Come On Feel the Noise, then See My Baby Jive, I'm the Leader of the Gang, I Love You, Love Me, Love, The 12th of Never, and then Spanish Eyes by Al Martino.
Oh, Spanish Eyes.
That only reached number 5, so how it did sold so well.
It's one of those, people go off on holiday in the summer and that's being played all over Europe and, or certainly all over Spain, and they come home and they buy it. I mean,
I'll skip down the list to songs that weren't number 1, which we haven't mentioned them. So jumping down after Al Martino, we have number 14, And I Love You So by Perry Como.
And I love you so. People ask me
Como in 1973. I mean, I wouldn't have, I don't know what that was doing, why that was there.
I don't know where it would have come from, but he probably did an appearance on the Valdunican show.
Apparently it's a song by Don McLean. So,
Crackerjack. Don McLean. No, the other one.
And then number 15 on the best-selling list was a number 2 hit, Hello, Hello, I'm Back Again by Gag Glitter. Then
well, he's not singing that much these days.
Yeah. Then number 17, Boring Blitz by Sweet.
I
thought that was number 1, but maybe next year, but never mind.
That was number 2. Said everyone attack.
That was number 2. Number 18. Now, I hesitate to even read this one, considering it's another Gary Glitter song. Do You Want to Touch Me? Oh, yeah, number 2.
Yes.
That was 18th biggest selling single.
Yeah. It's funny, it was in plain sight, really, wasn't it?
And then number 21, the 21st biggest selling song in 1973. I think this was one that was banned at the time. It's Monster Mash by Bobby Boris Pickett and the Crypt Kickers.
Oh, why would that
It
have
was
been
It was a 1962 novelty song, but I think it was banned at the time.
It's a bit of a Halloween staple now, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think they do a cover of it in Hotel Transylvania. Far from being banned, I think.
Yeah.
Kids all love it now. I know that Halloween's become another one of these. Oh God, not that again. But yeah, I mean, it's a big part of that for a lot of people.
Now, Perry Como has another song in the top best-selling list, number 22, For the Good Times, number 7.
I'm sure we had an LP of Perry Como. I'm sure he wore a blue polo neck.
Yeah, I just didn't realise he was having hits in the 70s, just like that. Actually, I think I need to, because when did he start? He was. Let me have a look a bit more about Perry Como's discography. If they don't seem to want to give me a discography,
it's on the secret list.
Yeah, I don't know. They're not interested in sharing. It's not. It's quite a detailed Wikipedia page, but there's no links to his. Anyway, so I don't know what he was doing. Still having big hits in the 70s.
Maybe he'd been in a coma.
Okay. Well, he was still filming Christmas specials in '94, so I guess he was
bloody hell
doing Christmas specials on TV and still had a following.
Wheel him out every year, do a Perry Como's Christmas special, wheel him back in, put him back in the Tupperware box for another year.
So other hits that were big were Dancing on a Saturday Night by Barry Blue, got to number 2.
Because I'm associating that with someone like Paul Nicholas, weirdly, but I think that's just me getting mixed up with Dancing with the Captain.
Part of the Union by Straubs.
You don't get me, I'm part of the Union. Till the day I die.
Life on Mars, number 3, David Bowie. Hellraiser by Sweet, number 2. Don't know if I know Hellraiser, but Yesterday Once More by the Carpenters, number 2. My Friend Stan by Slade, number 2. Gosh, they've already had it's amazing. Some of these people are releasing at least 4 or 5 singles a year.
Yeah, big year for them.
You're So Vain by Carly Simon, number 3.
Oh, who's that about then?
She has finally said who it was about. But, I think she released it as in some auction or something. Albatross by Fleetwood Mac, number 2. Presumably that's a reissue of
Albatross is an instrumental, though, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's from 68.
It's been quite a year, because obviously Vanderbilt was an instrumental, so instrumentals were obviously quite the thing at the time. It's like Popcorn.
That's a reissue from 68, so I don't quite know why it was coming out. Maybe they had a greatest hits. Rock On by David Essex, number 3.
Rock On.
Nutbush City Limits by Ike and Tina Turner, number 4. All Right.
Yes.
All Right by Mungo Jerry, number 3. I don't know that one. Sorrow by David Bowie. That's an old cover. That's a cover. One and One is One by Medicine Head, number 3.
Medicine Head. Now there's a band name. No, I'd say it's one of those band names that I think I remember the name of the band more than I remember the songs they did. I'm a bit like that with Captain Beefheart.
Yeah,
don't really know any Captain Beefheart songs, if you like, or tunes. But
they were described as a British blues rock band.
Yeah.
Just a couple more. You Can Do Magic by Limmy and the Family Cooking, number 3.
Interesting. Again, I would have thought that was done by someone completely different. How weird.
Let Me In by the Osmonds, number 2.
No.
The Genie by David Bowie, number 2. Caroline by Status Quo, number 5.
So again, Bowie was being quite prolific that year as well. Then.
Yeah, I wonder if because the next one I think was probably not released with his go ahead, because this is the year that the Laughing Gnome got to number 6. That was on a different record label. I suspect that got released because he was being successful with new stuff.
But it was also getting a lot of play on, I think, was it Tony Blackburn's radio show? I think for some reason it was one of those ones that got picked up because it was novelty songs did well on family favourites radio programs like Junior Choice, like Tony Blackburn. So I imagine for hilarity's sake, and then people go out and buy it. So yeah, it's kind of interesting.
We're still in the top 50 bestsellers. I'll just go to the end, just skipping the ones we don't know. We've got Feel the Need in Me by the Detroit Emeralds, number 4. My Cuckoo by Alvin Stardust, number 2.
I love my Cuckoo. I always think it's a song about actually buying sort of new kitchen equipment. I want my Cuckoo. I need my Cuckoo.
Then Power to All Our Friends by Cliff Richard, number 4. That was the 45th best-selling single. Never, Never, Never by Shirley Bassey, number 8. 20th Century Boy by T-Rex, number 3.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of his most sort of adored songs these days.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm surprised that didn't sell that. But then, things become sort of favourites through familiarity and time, don't they?
I think we said last time that 73 was the beginning of the downward slide for T-Rex anyway. Snoopy versus the Red Baron, the Hot Shots.
I did used to like that.
Then I Am a Clown, David Cassidy, number 3, and Paper Roses by Marie Osmond, number 2.
Paper Roses.
It makes you wonder.
Another Osmond song.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if that got to number 2. It got to number 2 on a week when selling number 2 wasn't because it did well number wise, but actually it's only number 50 in the. Now, before we go over to America, I just want to go through the albums. Some of these do look a bit like it's a mixture of new stuff and compilations, but we've got 20 all-time hits of the 50s.
We'll be coming back to that later.
Yeah, we've got Slade ? By Slade. That's spelled Slayd. Then we've got Back to Front for 1 week by Gilbert O'Sullivan. Then Slade comes back for 2 weeks. Then for 6 weeks we have Don't Shoot Me, I'm Only the Piano Player by Elton John.
No, my sister had bought that. Yes, we did have that.
That has Crocodile Rock and Daniel on it, which we didn't see turning up in singles wise. I don't know where those got because those are one of them. Crocodile Rock came out in late October and Daniel came out in very early January. So yeah, I'm still surprised that Daniel was.
There was that and Goodbye Yellow Brick Road were the two Elton John albums my sister had. So,
Daniel got to number 4. It probably just didn't make it into the top 50 list. Because these are all albums. I mean, some people are better known for their albums. He may have only got to number 4, but as an album, it got to number 1. So then we have for a week $1 Billion Babies by Alice Cooper.
Okay.
Then for 2 weeks, 20 flashback greats of the 60s. Various artists. Then for 2 weeks we have Houses of the Holy by Led Zeppelin. They've got past. Is this the first album where they actually give it a proper title rather than just sticking a number on it?
Yeah, possibly.
Then for a week we have Ooh La La by the Faces, and then for 5 weeks Aladdin Sane by David Bowie. Then 3 weeks Pure Gold, various artists. Don't know what eras those songs are.
No.
Prior to 73 anyway. Then we have That'll Be the Day soundtrack for 7 weeks. That'll Be the Day, isn't that's one of those David Essex films?
Yeah, it's actually but isn't it? It's set in the 50s, but it's actually I do believe we had that on our shelves at one point. Yes.
Then we have for 2 weeks We Can Make It.
Not like mainstream.
Yeah. Then for 2 weeks we have We Can Make It by Peters and Lee.
Okay, we didn't have that.
Then for 3 weeks we have Sing It Again, Rod by Rod Stewart.
Right, we didn't have that either, thank God.
That's the one where he sings Reason to Believe and Maggie May, Handbags and Glad Rags, Street Fighting Man.
And he sings it again.
It's like a mixture of covers and his songs of the time. But then we have Goat's Head Soup for 2 weeks by Rolling Stones.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the hits off that. Oh, Angie and Do Heartbreaker.
Yeah, okay. That wasn't a greatest hits one. That was a new album in 70s.
Yeah, it's not their most famous one.
No.
By any means. Then we have Sladist for 3 weeks.
Yes.
By Slade. That has some singles off that. Doesn't really. So I Will Come and Feel the Noise. Goodbye to Jane. Squeeze Me, Please Me.
Well, that actually shows this sort of 60s model is still, you could actually have 2 LPs out in a year.
I wonder if this is it's a compilation.
Ah.
Yes, because I was looking at that thinking, God, they had a lot of, it's all quite well-known ones. It sort of covers the sort of when they started up until that time.
Right, okay.
Then we have Hello by Status Quo.
The Quo. Oh dear. Yeah.
That's the one that has Caroline on it.
Right.
Then
I had a friend who was a big fan of the Quo, but was always slightly ashamed of the fact.
Then for 5 weeks we have Pin-Ups by David Bowie.
David Bowie, we did have that. We did have that on the shelf. I remember the flick forward LP holding device from Ronco. And that was always the one that was at the front. I think it was possibly the coolest LP we had.
Is that the one with Twiggy on the front cover?
It's the one with the zigzag painting of across the face. It's. But I think it was actually. I think Pin-Ups was a compilation as well. Actually.
It's weird. It's the one that has Sorrow on. I think it's covering older songs because it's also the album where he covers See Emily Play.
Maybe that's what I mean. Then it's sort of old material or something. But I mean that's a thing that people do. I can sing the old songs too, just to prove they have a voice. It's not the worst thing in the world.
Then after that we have Stranded by Roxy Music. Which has got Street Life on, which is, I think, one of my favourites Roxy Music singles.
That must be the dawn of Roxy Music. That must have been Breakthrough, surely.
Well, they'd had a couple of albums here before. They had For Your Pleasure in 73, early in 73, and then Roxy Music. That's sort of their third album. So I think Brian Eno.
Yeah, I just vaguely remember that they were seen as a driving force of sort of this idea of glam, but also not, because they weren't glam, were they? They didn't sort of put the glitter on, really, did they? They were very arts when they came from art school.
It was their first album after Brian Eno had left.
Right.
But it just shows how quick a turnaround it was. It was recorded in September 73 and released at the start of November. So they didn't. They didn't hang around.
Kick out the ego.
Got 2 more number ones. One is Dreams Are Nothing More Than Wishes by David Cassidy. And then
you had that. Then that was Born for You as a christening present.
that was for 1 week, and then for 2 weeks. And I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't return later in 74. But the last number one album of 73 was Goodbye Yellow Brick Road by Elton John, which
is a fine album. It's one of the few I've actually rebought. Yeah.
Which has Saturday Nights Were Right for Fighting, and Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, of course, and Benny and the Jets,
yes,
and Candle in the Wind.
Good album, but also for a double album, surprisingly short. I think I could get most of it on the one side of a C90 from what I remember.
I'm just having a quick look. Other famous albums that came out that year.
Well, Dark Side of the Moon, obviously.
Yeah, we've got Deep Purple releasing Who Do We Think We Are, Dark Side of the Moon, Tanks by T-Rex, Together by Jack Jones. I'm only mentioning that because my mum likes Jack Jones. Got to number 8 though. The Blue and Red album by the Beatles. Those compilations came out in May 73. They came out at the same time as well.
That's surprising.
Wings.
Stagger them a bit, wouldn't you?
Yeah, Red Rose Speedway, number 5 by Wings, Paul McCartney. They were already at the stage where they were being called Paul McCartney and Wings, or was that? I can't remember. I can't remember if that was always how they were, or whether certain periods they were sort of just reminding people that Paul.
Whichever way round they did it. Yes.
There Goes Rhyming Simon by Paul Simon, number 4.
Okay.
George Harrison, Living in the Material World, number 2.
Mm-hmm.
Hunky Dory. That must have been a re-release or something, because Hunky Dory didn't come out in 73. It originally came out in 71, I think.
Maybe just sold more in 73.
Yeah.
People went and look. Sometimes somebody makes the breakthrough and they go back and they buy all the old stuff as well.
Yeah, it's possible that those Red and Blue albums by the Beatles were earlier than 73, but I'm not quite sure how long after. Selling England by the Pound by Genesis. Berlin by Lou Reed.
Wow.
Touch Me in the Morning by Diana Ross, number 7.
I thought you were going to say that was Gary Glitter again.
Mott by Mott the Hoople, that was number 7.
Mott the Hoople.
Welcome by Santana.
I think I've mentioned before that the first ever edition of Looking I saw had Mott the Hoople on the cover. I hadn't a clue who they were.
Band on the Run, that album came out very late in December 73, so we'll hear more from that next year.
And of course, 1973 was Live and Let Die.
Yeah, but we haven't seen mention of that. I don't know what's been going on. Right, we'll fly over to America now. So it is a little bit different. So we start with For 3 Weeks, You're So Vain by Carly Simon. So that did better in the States than over here. But, I mean, it was still a hit. Then we have
Warren Beatty.
Yeah. Then we have Superstition by Stevie Wonder.
Wow.
I don't know where that got over here. Got number 11 over here.
Because that's just, class. I mean, that's class piece. That's class. I mean, that is one of the all-time, isn't it? Pieces of vinyl. It's
surprised it was only there for 1 week. I mean,
slow and steady wins the race, though. That's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah, you never know how long it's been in the charts before. It could have been number 2 for 6 weeks or something.
I mean, you don't have to sell 1 million in a week. You can sell sort of like 20,000 for lots of weeks, and you'll still sell 1 million in the end.
Then for 3 weeks we have Crocodile Rock by Elton John. So again, that did better for him. He didn't have a solo number 1 until about 1990 in the UK. He had that Dagger Breaking My Heart with Kiki D, but it took him.
He was liked, but he wasn't well liked.
Yeah, he took a long time to have us. So
it's peculiar. I was listening to one of his greatest hits compilations recently, and I thought I'd forgotten how many really good songs there were. I mean, obviously you've got the soundtrack album to the what's it called, Rocket Man. You probably know that, but you forget just how many good songs there were in the early era Elton John.
Then for 4 weeks we have Killing Me Softly with This Song by Roberta Flack, which I think did okay over here, but got to number 6 over here. Then the night the lights went out in Georgia by Vicki Lawrence for 2 weeks.
Okay.
And then for 4 weeks it did well over here as well. We've got Tie Yellow Ribbon Round the Old Oak Tree by Dawn and Tony Orlando.
It seemed to be, just seemed to strike a chord with people, but it's, I don't know. In my head, I don't know about you, but how sometimes a song, when you remember it, it segues into something else. It sort of segues into a Brotherhood of Man song, which is Save All Your Kisses for Me. It's sort of tie a yellow ribbon round the old oak tree, save all your kisses for me. I think it's possibly the same sort of rhythm to it. Also, I mean, I don't know. This just it even though you're only 3. I don't know. Anyway,
I think I probably prefer Tie Yellow Ribbon.
Oh, absolutely, but it's just in your memory. The tune sort of goes sailing off into something else.
I don't like the sort of silly twist. Saving Your Kisses for Me is a fine bit of bubblegum pop until you're only 3. And there's like one where she singing to a dog or something. Not that you shouldn't sing to a dog, but I just
No. Well,
I just don't
David
think
Cassidy made a career on it, didn't he?
yeah. Well, I just don't think you should sing it like that's the twist, because it's not. It's not Tales of the Unexpected, is it?
It's suddenly twee.
Yeah. Then we have "You Are the Sunshine of My Life" for 1 week by Stevie Wonder.
Mm-hmm.
Then for 1 week, "Frankenstein" by the Edgar Winter Group. That's an instrumental, and it got to number 18 in the UK. But I
couldn't tell you
know.
anything about that. No.
Then we have for 4 weeks "My Love" by Paul McCartney and Wings.
Okay.
So again, that did better. That wasn't. That was number 9 in the UK.
Again, it's funny because that sounds a bit like sort of his Beatles of some of the songs. It does. In fact, it still sounds quite of the sort of semi-solo Beatley things he did when he was in the Beatles. That one sort of has that air of it, doesn't it? Really, just a little bit.
Funnily enough, he's replaced at number 1 by George Harrison with "Give Me Love, Give Me Peace on Earth." It got to number 8 in the UK.
Okay. And
then we have, funnily enough, somebody who is also associated with late period Beatles. We have "Will It Go Round in Circles" by Billy Preston.
Okay.
Billy Preston was certainly on Get Back, but I think on a number of other sort of around that time. Then we have "Bad Bad Leroy Brown" by Jim Croce. C-R-O-C-E. I'm not sure how you pronounce that. That was 2 weeks. We have.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking that of the Queen song, "Bring Back That Leroy Brown," which probably is some way related to it and would possibly even have been a couple of years, within a couple of years of it. And of course, that's kind of fascinating in its own little way.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to have been released in the UK, or didn't. So it's not been recorded here if it was. But
who is Leroy Brown? Do we know? It doesn't matter if we don't. I just wondered.
I think it's just a fiction, but I'm not sure. Just say it was inspired by a friend he met in the army, but so yeah, I'm not sure it's anyone famous. But then we have for 2 weeks "The Morning After" by Maureen McGovern, who is a singer and Broadway actress.
Okay.
Don't think that was released in the UK. There's certainly no statistics anyway.
No.
Then we have "Touch Me in the Morning." Got 2 songs in morning in a row. "Touch Me in the Morning" by Diana Ross. That got to number 9 in the UK. And we have "Brother Louie" by The Stories.
Okay. No, again, doesn't ring a bell.
I feel like Hot Chocolate covered "Brother Louie."
Right.
It's a song about an interracial love affair between a white man and a black woman.
Okay.
And the subsequent disowning of the man by his parents because of it. Actually, it says it was actually written by Errol Brown. So it was obviously a Hot Chocolate song first. It got to number 7, but then it was covered. So that was a cover, American. So it wasn't the Hot Chocolate version, but it was around the same sort of time.
Wonder how well that played below the Mason-Dixon.
Then we have "Let's Get It On" by Marvin Gaye for 1 week. Then "Delta Dawn" by Helen Reddy for 1 week.
So kind of a lot of stuff that didn't seem to travel in the American charts that year.
"Let's Get It On" only got to number 31 in the UK.
We were too busy buying novelty songs over it.
"Delta Dawn" doesn't appear to have been released in the UK. Then we have "Let's Get It On" comes back again.
Right.
Then we've got "We're an American Band" by Grand Funk.
Okay.
Which perhaps unsurprisingly didn't get a release in the UK. Then we have "Half Breed" by Cher. Which I don't think was released in the UK. I think that was a relatively controversial one. "Angie" by the Rolling Stones, which we've already established.
We have at least heard of, yes.
We've heard of, but only got to number 5 in the UK. Not one of my favourite Rolling Stones one, that bit of a whiny one.
Angie, get over here. Get my pub.
Then we have "Midnight Train to Georgia" by Gladys Knight and the Pips for 2 weeks.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I kind of almost thought that was earlier than that. Got to number 10 in the UK. Then "Keep on Trucking" by Eddie Kendricks.
Okay. Which launched 1 billion T-shirts, no doubt.
Yeah. It does say it reached number 18 on the UK chart. there's quite a lot of. I don't know if this is when CB radio started coming in, or whether they were long been around, or it was a bit later in the 70s. But Bread did a good song called "Trucking Around."
A couple of years away from Convoy.
Oh, then we have "Photograph" by Ringo Starr, which is one of my favourite Ringo Starr ones. That got to number 8 in the UK. Then we have "Top of the World" by the Carpenters. Top of the World too.
Up and down on creation, and the only explanation I can find. That one.
Yeah. Apparently, the Carpenters originally intended it to be an album track, but then Lynn Anderson of Rose Garden fame got it to number 2. She got it to number 2 on the country chart, so they decided maybe it's quite a good song. And I mean, they wrote it. But, yeah. What did I say? It got to number 5 in the UK. Yeah. So we've got about 2 more. We've got "The Most Beautiful Girl" by Charlie Rich. Is that if you happen to see "Most Beautiful Girl"?
Well, I suppose it must be. Yeah.
That one.
Well, I mean, there may be others, but
That's number 2 in the UK.
Makes sense. Yeah.
That's number 2 in the UK, but I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't get to number 2 until 74, because I think we would have seen it if it had been that high. Then we have "Time in a Bottle" by Jim Crockey again. Crochet. Whatever. Is that one of that's if I could sing time? Yeah, I feel like I might know a cover of that.
Yeah.
Like either someone like Olivia Newton-John or Roger Whittaker or somebody like that. Or both.
Say sometimes the titles feel more familiar than the songs themselves, don't they? You know.
Yeah, I mean, Olivia Newton-John was doing a lot of covers before she, at the start of her career, where she was sort of crossing over from country to. She did a lot of sort of contemporary covers.
Yes, true. But I mean, again, that's part of the country scene as well, wasn't it? There was a lot of the country writers, and I mean, I get the impression that ONJ came from country and western, but I maybe doing her an injustice with that.
A little bit different to some stories, being that she's Australian. So it's.
I know, but I just feel that her sound worked very well in country and western circles. I may be completely wrong, but.
To finish up with, we've got albums, US albums, big US albums. 73. We've got "Seventh Sojourn" by the Moody Blues.
Right. I don't know that one.
I did sort of go through a lot of the Moody Blues albums. I downloaded a load of them when I was on holiday once, but I don't think I'm not even sure I got as far as. I think I got through some of the 60s ones, and I quite enjoyed them, but.
They've got a good sound. It's funny, another one of those bands that had a lot of stuff that I'm just very unfamiliar with.
Then for 5 weeks, we have "No Secrets" by Carly Simon.
Except for that one.
Yeah. The World is a Ghetto by War for 2 weeks.
Okay.
Don't Shoot Me, I'm Only the Piano Player by Elton John for 2 weeks. Dueling Banjos by Eric Weisberg and Steve Mandel for 3 weeks.
I wonder why that was. Deliverance was about then, wasn't it?
Then for 2 weeks, Lady Sings the Blues by Diana Ross. That's a soundtrack album. Then $1 Billion Babies by Alice Cooper for 1 week. Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd for 1 week. Aloha from Hawaii via Satellite by Elvis Presley for 1 week. Houses of the Holy by Led Zeppelin for 2 weeks. 67 to 70 by the Beatles.
Cover, I think. Sorry, go on. So the compilations.
67 to 70 by the Beatles. I don't know why that one did so well. I wonder if the other one. It looks like it was released about the same time as the UK release. So yeah, maybe the other one wasn't quite as popular.
Right.
Then for 3 weeks we had Red Rose Speedway by Paul McCartney and Wings.
Okay.
And then for 5 weeks, Living in the Material World by George Harrison.
Living in the material world, and I am not that one.
The weird thing is the cover has a sort of.
Is it a tribute album by Madonna then to George Harrison? Yeah. I never knew that.
It's not an album I know particularly of his, and I have dabbled in George Harrison solo albums.
Bit of George.
The weird thing is it has a sort of handprint to the cover, which is a little bit like the handprint that ABBA are using on their new some of their new promotional stuff.
There's nothing new in the world, is there?
Then we have for 3 weeks Chicago 6 by Chicago.
Right.
1 week A Passion Play by Jethro Tull.
Okay.
Then Chicago. Yeah. Then Chicago comes back for 2 weeks.
Okay.
Then 5 weeks Brothers and Sisters, the Allman Brothers Band.
Okay. I don't know that.
Goat's Head Soup for 4 weeks by the Rolling Stones.
Mm-hmm.
And then from my birthday,
Hooray.
my birthday until the end of the year, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks is Goodbye Yellow Brick Road by Elton John.
Wow. So what you're saying is really you should have been born in the States, young man.
Well, yeah.
You're such a child.
It's funny how some of these people like Elton and Rolling Stones and George Harrison
still around.
Well, I was going to say that their albums seemed to be bigger in the States than they were in their home countries.
Not unusual, then. It's not unusual.
Well, Martin, I think that's almost it for 73.
Okay.
Out my birthday year as I do my real birthday. But we will be doing 74 together because we haven't done that year. But all I'll say is in 74 we have number ones by the New Seekers, Mud, Susie Quattro, Alvin Stardust, Paper Lace, Terry Jacks, ABBA, the Rubettes, Ray Stevens, Gary Glitter, Charles Aznavour, George McRae, The 3 Degrees, The Osmonds, Carl Douglas, John Denver, Sweet Sensation, Ken Booth, David Essex, and Barry White.
It's going to be a busy year, and I do feel you've finally reached peak homes. I think you've finally reached my wonder years. So there we go.
There's very few people who have more than one number one. Yeah,
it's going to be a long episode next time.
I can see one of those acts.
Listeners.
I can see one of those acts who have two number ones. But other than that, and no sign of Slade in 74 and T-Rex are well and truly gone by now.
Shot the Christmas bolt, you see.
I mean, T-Rex is still about. They're just not having number one songs. But yeah, well, we'll get back and record some more, and we'll have 74 for you soon enough. But well, anyway, thank you very much, Martin. And
always a pleasure, Paul. Always a pleasure.
And thanks for listening, listeners. And yeah, we'll be back again soon. And after the end music, of course, we will have the return of Ick singing his favourite songs from 73.
Which is the only reason anyone ever listens to all our drivel, isn't it, really? Yeah. Thank you very much. You take care.
Yeah, bye-bye for now.
So, Paul, are you looking forward to hearing how Ick sings the songs of your birth year? Well, to be honest, Comedy, I am. I really am. You know, it's weird to sort of return to these songs because we had talked about them, but it was quite a while ago now, and we didn't talk about everything. We certainly didn't talk about the obscure things, and and it feels kind of like a completion of this mammoth project that we've done, where we've been covering so many years. We've almost plugged that gap that we've got. Only one more year after this, 1974, and then we'll have done a run from, 1960 to 1996 or something. There's still more to do, but it does feel like, that we've sort of achieved something. It's just, very odd that we did it out of order, but it made sense at the time. Oh yes, Paul, nobody would expect you to do anything in a normal order, or anything normal at all. Oh, thank you. I think that's I think that's a compliment. It is, Paul. Yes, most definitely. So, do you think he's ready yet? I did have a look around the, his changing room. What is it called? Changing room? Oh, yeah, like what an actor has behind stage. Changing room is, yeah, that's not quite the word I was thinking of, but yeah, I know what you mean. His cloakroom, dressing room. Oh, we got there eventually. Yeah, oh gosh, old age has struck. Oh, Paul, it has, most certainly. So, yes, you had a look around his dressing room. Yes, and he was wearing no clothes at all. It was quite a shock. Oh, come on, you've seen him like that before. Oh, maybe just once or twice. No, actually, he had his dressing gown on. Gosh, yes. I remember when he ordered that dressing gown, we had to make sure they got the right number of arm sockets, or although his arms and legs look kind of similar in a way, they are most definitely not similar. It was quite a palaver, eh? Anyway, all sorted. Yes, Paul, all sorted. Oh, yes, most definitely sorted. Oh, I hear the theme music coming. Must mean that Ike is nearly ready to sing the big songs of 1973. Oh, I'm so excited. Oh, me too, Paul, me too. Listeners, get ready. Oh, gosh.
I gotta go now. Bye. Gotta go. Bye.
Goodbye.
This show is part of the Pride 48 network. Find more shows over at pride48.com.
Oh, such mysteries.
That Yeti. He's crazy.
I have a voice. I have a voice.
You have a voice.
You have a voice. We have a voice.
We have a voice.
Unique voices in podcasting.
UnivazPods.net.
Hello, listeners. I'm here now to sing you some of my favourites and some of the biggest hits from the year 1973. Okay. Da-dum, da-dum. Da-dum, da-dum. Da-dum, da-dum, dum, da-dum, dum, dum, dum. Da-dum-a-dee-doo. Da-dum-a-dee-doo. The Blockbuster! So, you didn't learn many of the words for that one, but I think I got the general spirit of the song. Come on, feel the noise. Girls, grab the boys. Make it wild, wild, wild. Make it wild, wild, wild. Boo, boo, boo. Oh, yeah. Come on, feel the noise. Girls, grab the boys. Make it wild, wild, wild. Make it wild, wild, wild. Get down. You're a bad dog, baby. And get down. Yes. Tie a yellow ribbon round the old oak tree. It's been 10 long years. Do, 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 do. La, 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 la. Do, 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 do. Save all your kisses for me. Save all your kisses. Oh, I see what Martin meant now. Oh, yes. See my baby drive. Do, do, do. What a lazy ride. Do, do, do. Can the can. The can. Moving on. Bullets. No, I don't remember that one. Squeeze me, please me. No. This one. Welcome home. Da, 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 da. Come on in. Da, Come on in and close the door. Do 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 do. 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 Welcome home. Do 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 do. Come on in. Do 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 do. Come on in. Do 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 do. And close the door. Yes. What are these ones? You're so vain. I bet you think the song is about you, don't you? Oh, you do 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 you're so vain. I bet you think this song is about you. You're so vain. But you think the song is about you, don't you? Daniel, da 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 do, yeah da 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 da, do 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 do. To Daniel, your star. Yes. What else? Oops. Oh dear. 20th Century Boy. Killing me softly with his song. Telling his lies, da-da-da. Zipping me softly with his song. Getting a whole life with his song. Getting a whole life with his song. Killing me softly with his song. Oh, yes. What else? You are the sunshine of my life, and I will always be around you. Ooh. Yes. You are the sunshine of my day. Oh, that's stuck in the middle with you. Stuck in the middle with... No, I don't remember that one enough. Oh, live and let die. Ooh, live and let die. Ooh, life on Mars. And Saturday night's alright for fighting. Yep, I know those ones. We've only had time though. The Monster Mash. It is the Monster Mash. Oh, Monster Mash. It was a graveyard smash. Let's do the mash. And not push city limits, do. Not push city limits, do. Not push city limits. Goodbye, yellow brick road. The dogs of society howl. Lovely yellow brick road. La 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 la.
Well, Ick, that was a fantastic selection of songs there.
Is that all I need to do?
Yes, that's all you need to do. It was very good, wasn't it, Cromitty? Oh, yes, It was marvellous. Ick, you surpassed yourself.
Oh, thank you. Yes, thank you.
Let's all say thank you very much to Ick, and it's time to go now. I think you're going to send us off with eye level, aren't you?
Eye level. Oh, yes.
Very good. Marvellous. Hi listeners, it's me, Paul the Shayeti. Just a little message really. I'm at St George's Hospital in Tooting. This is where I sometimes come for my CPAP and my leg problems. So I've been here a lot over the last few years, though I've not been here for nearly 2 years because of the pandemic. Actually, today I'm not here for me. This is a bit of a secret mission, actually. Now, I think you know how we talked about, of course, Ick is very close now to giving birth. It's not long till episode 500. And, he does have his specialist helpers, who like Sister Oo and all that. But there's just a few little sort of last-minute things that needed doing, and getting them done here was the easiest way of achieving them. So I thought that it would be very unlikely that we could sort of get Ick an appointment at a normal hospital, but apparently there are one or two doctors in this hospital, or who know a bit more about extraterrestrials. So yes, he's got an appointment with somebody who knows about Ick's situation, and it's only going to be a very quick appointment. It was just like a scene out of E.T. actually. Do you remember when E.T. they have to disguise him? Well, that's kind of what happened with Ick today, because we couldn't sort of fly here because it's just too central, and so we just had to go on the train. We kind of had to disguise Ick. Now, he does have certain shape-changing abilities usually, but because he's so near to giving birth, I think some of those skills, he just can't be bothered with it. So we sort of dressed him up. We made him look like he was going to a birthday party, like he was in a costume, even though, it's way past Halloween and it's not yet Christmas. It felt a bit demeaning, to be honest. Nobody looked twice, of course. I mean, I think that's what he says when he goes out shopping, in normal times, is that nobody notices him. Nobody almost can't believe what they're seeing, so they don't take it in. But, anyway, I've just delivered him with the doctor who's seeing him, and I'm waiting outside because they don't want too many people in the hospital still because of everything that's been going on, understandably, and I'm waiting for a phone call to come and pick him up again. But a little adventure today, taking Ick to the hospital, to a normal hospital. I really never thought this would be happening, but I'm glad I could help. But I think everything's fine. I hope everything's fine. But we'll see. Oh, I think we just got a text. I wonder if I better go. all right. I'll let you know how it goes. Hi listeners, just a quick addendum to that first message. I've just had a text and a quick phone call. Ick's ready to be picked up. Everything's fine. Everything's good. We're going to get him home. He's just got to have as much rest as possible, and hopefully maybe we'll get to speak to him in a second, but not if I don't get up on my feet and go and pick him up. So, well, go and collect him. Go and take him home. Anyway, so right, yes, all good news. Everything's fine. All right, bye for now.
Pa, that was a whopper. Whee. Oh, Paul, he's so sweet.
Oh my God, is this show over with yet? 493. 493. 493.
Yeah, definitely. Come and sit with me, dear. Stop screaming in the hallway. Come on. Come on. He's always in the kitchen at parties. I can confirm that we haven't done 74 as well, so we can do that another time. So.